Howdy and happy Friday, folks. We are Eckless today. It's Peter, Russ, and I, and we have some pre-show stuff. You first, Russ.
Okay, as I pull up the chat room. So it looks like, and I don't know when this started, but a good friend of mine had this on his Facebook account, that there's a new show and it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube Red. And it's called Cobra Kai.
Oh no! I heard they were going to do a sequel.
Well, this is obviously a series.
Yes.
So this is that, and so of course they try and suck you in like a gateway drug with the beginning of the Karate Kid, and my feeling is when they open it up and. And Lawrence's, life is rough for him. He's eating bologna and drinking Coors beer. And the funny thing is that's what happens. Daniel's son's a winner and Lawrence is a loser. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And I don't know if I need to watch anymore because Lawrence was a cheater. He lost.
Yeah. I talk about a bad career path. The actor who played the antagonist in the Karate Kid he was an actor named William Zabka, and he specialized in playing pricks.
Yeah,
he played the prick in Karate Kid.
Yep,
he was the I would say the annoying son of Edward Woodward in The Equalizer, one of my favorite shows in the 80s. He was always the one who questioned his father or questioned what he did. Only later in the show did he finally appreciate that the guy was a CIA contract agent and would go out. And if you remember the Rodney Dangerfield movie Back to School. He was the prick in that one. He was the one who lost the girlfriend. So this guy, his career path was prickish.
Yeah. The one thing we could say about this movie is that Daniel's son in real life is an Islander fan, and so
Ralph Macchio.
Yeah. Ralph Macchio is a longtime Islander fan, and also a Long Islander. So growing up, I couldn't get away from the guy. He's close to the same age, if not exactly the same age. So yeah. I would always hear about him. But I don't necessarily care that Ralph Macchio or Daniel, and the setup is he's a big car dealer guy, and so he's very successful. And, Lawrence is the kind of everyday, just trying to scrape by kind of guy. And it's I'm about 8 minutes in and I'm almost done.
See, the only thing that would make this show worthwhile is that if you found out that Daniel had married Elizabeth Shue, who dumped him after the first movie. Of course, she's too big of a star to do a YouTube Red TV series. So, the woman is an Academy Award winning, a nominated actress.
About this, are you just dead from the head down for Karate Kid? No, Peter. I'm asking Peter.
Oh. Sorry, what was that? Say again.
About this, or are you dead from the head down with Karate Kid? It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, nah. I know what you're talking about. I've heard about this. Once they started making all the sequels, it was fun. Wax on, wax off. Paint up, paint down. It was fun. It was a neat movie back in the 80s. Yay.
Yeah, we had. I was a usher at a movie theater. We had the sequel, Karate Kid 2, which
wasn't terrible.
But then it got really bad. I think there was a 3, and then there was not that many people remember this. Hilary Swank, the 2-time Academy Award winning actress, they did a Karate Kid the next something or other.
Yeah, I didn't bother with that.
A female Karate Kid, and she was the female Karate Kid.
Right. So, I knew it was going bad when Peter Cetera did that lead song for them, and I was a Chicago fan, but that was when things started to get 80s Starship bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Sarah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can live with Sarah a little bit, but it was just that was just the bad part of the 80s was this overdone, over poppy,
You Built This City is possibly the biggest musical atrocity in the history of the world. I mean, Grace Slick and Mickey Thomas should be shot for that song.
Although, conversely, though, on that album, the song Black Widow is actually a pretty good song.
Okay, I'll have to listen to it because I never heard it. Two quick things. One, I did the webcast yesterday from the parking lot of a Starbucks. And before I had to go in and, take care of some business and actually, get something to drink. I am sick and tired of going into Starbucks. Starbucks has become, and this is not a revelation, but Starbucks has become so specific now that it takes 20 minutes for somebody to order. It's like, I'll have a caramel macchiato with half, half and half, not, and it's like this.
I think it says something about the person, not the place, because literally I walk into like Dunkin' Donuts, and now because they have 3 or 4 different types of tea, I just tell them whether it's black or green, and I'm done, right? Give me lemon. I don't need sugar. Goodbye.
My favorite game at Starbucks is when someone does exactly what you said, Mike. Yeah. Once they come up and they're usually standing there waiting for their, their unique creation. I make something up. I'll have a half calf double decaf with a twist. Oh no, you got to make it 303 degrees, please. No, but it's very specific to 3 because that's the way milk does a certain thing. Like I absolutely create up, and they look at me like I'm insane. I said, "Oh no, I won't be like that person. Just give me a coffee." Like it's just,
you know what it is, Peter. This is the way the consumer feels like they justify the price tag. If Starbucks was like $2 for a cup of coffee, nobody would have all these crazy demands. But because they charge like whatever it is, $5-6, now that's come into play. That's
yes. Do you want a dark roast or do you want a blonde?
Right.
I mean, no. And me, I go in and I ask for an iced tea. And I can't drink unsweetened iced tea because unsweetened iced tea is like drinking dirty water. So I'm like, but I'm
diabetic. So F you, Mike.
So I ask for half the sugar, and it's like, because usually they put 4 pumps in there, and I'm like, just give me 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's not a ridiculous request. It's one thing, and somebody else, the previous person has asked for 9 things, and they look at me like I'm speaking Swahili. So it's like I don't get it. Okay, other thing, briefly, the first game of the World Championships in Denmark today.
Yes, Canada went down.
The US beat Canada 5-4 in a shootout, and I tweeted out, "Woo! Revenge for Vancouver." I mean, honestly,
revenge for Sochi.
No, they didn't. Nobody cares. I mean, I know it's the first day.
I put out a very trolling tweet, and I did include Keith Kincaid on it because I do appreciate the good year he's had. So I just yo Canada.
But nobody. I mean, do you want to know how much nobody cares? The goalies were Keith Kincaid and Darcy Kemper.
Again, don't mess with my guy Keith Kincaid. He had a great year. He's
the
better.
Emoji King. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, their goalies are Darcy Kemper and Curtis McElhaney.
I know.
Anyway, okay, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World.
Hold on. Although they did use Quinn Hughes on the shootout, which was interesting.
They did do that.
And of course, like Gord, what's his last name?
Gord Miller?
Yeah, doing the call.
Yep.
He was like, Quinn Hughes, the 18-year-old, like they don't know anything about Quinn Hughes. And the fact that he's a defenseman and they're using him on the shootout is something pretty interesting if you know that. Anyhow.
Anyway. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you, 2018.
I'm Peter Tessier, not participating in Star Wars Day.
Thank you.
I'm Russ Cohen. I love Star Wars. Today's just another day, man.
Yeah, I'm so sick and tired of this May the 4th be with you crap. I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's talk about the games yesterday. Start off with that. Russ, we were proven correct.
We were.
The absence of Tom Wilson made a significant difference in the outcome of that game, and you can tell, and I in doing some research for the show, you can tell by the reaction of certain Capitals before the game and after the game. Nicholas Backstrom, this was reported by Greg Wyshynski, coming off the ice at the end of the game, threw a stick into the dressing room hallway and screamed, "F this league," after the game. I can only assume that meant F this league because they suspended one of the guys who was impactful to the series for 3 games. Devontae Smith-Pelly before the game said the league called before and said the hit was fine. It was shoulder to shoulder. Then we wake up the next day and we see a hearing. It is what it is, blah, blah, blah. So already the excuse train is on the track.
Yeah, it's heading down the track and it's not stopping. Here's the thing. First thing is, even if Devontae Smith-Pelly is correct, he didn't say who made the call as far as to the team. They could have just been speaking to somebody in the office that wasn't making the final decision and giving what he thought his opinion was. So really what Devontae Smith-Pelly said means nothing. Second thing is Tom Wilson got what he deserved because he had been playing this way for a while. Third thing is, Mike, you and I kind of were like shunned a little bit, like saying how important Wilson was, but we knew there'd be lineup jostling and also like a loss of mojo that clearly showed in for that team. And you know what? Devontae Smith-Pelly, that's what you could have replaced. That was supposed to be his job when Tom Wilson's not there. You want to be the hard checker, but be cleaner about it and control the play? Do that. Don't complain, because nobody wants to hear the complaints. Pittsburgh lost players in this series. They, again, and that was the thing even yesterday that I was fighting a little bit. Like, they lost Dumoulin. Dumoulin's still not back.
Right.
They lost, Zach Aston-Reese, who was a very effective player for them, and they played with a short bench, which definitely led to their loss. Now Carl Hagelin's back. Big difference. Stretches the ice. I don't think the Capitals have a chance of coming back in this series. I really don't.
Yeah,
it's 2-2. They still can. The best
reality is, yes,
it's the best of three, and they have home ice. They can still do it, but they need some other things to happen. I understand some of the problems that a player may have with this. So if there was word from the league, and we don't know where it came from, but if there was word from the league and someone says this, and then it goes back and then they say that's the problem that the league has. It's the inconsistency. That's the issue. And I think you can, if you're a player, you should say screw this league, but you can't say screw this league with the idea that a player isn't responsible for putting you in that situation as well, which is exactly what Wilson did.
Right.
And that's the problem. And I think, Kevin Allen touched on it yesterday and did a great job. He summarized it. If it's a hit to the head, it's automatic. It's not review. It's this. If it's close, that's it. Treat it like high sticking. And it's easy with high sticking because there's blood involved, and you don't see blood on the head when you have a head contact. That's a reviewable thing. If there's any contact with the head, it's 2 minutes. If it's flagrant, that's what you review, and you use that, and it takes less than a minute.
Yeah,
because if the puck's near, there's always going to be 6 cameras on it and anything.
You know what this is like? This is like your kid sneaking in the middle of the night. It's 2 a.m. The next morning, your kid goes to your wife and says, "What do you think Dad's going to do?" And she's going to be like, "You know what? I don't think he's going to care." You wake up in a bad mood, and you ground him for a week. And there's no way, that's what happens. Devontae Smith-Pelly, unless he spoke to George Parros, it doesn't matter who he spoke to or who called him. That's the reality. Actually make that public.
No one should be talking to him. That's
you don't even know if somebody official did. That's the point.
Yeah, no. I know. There's a lot of unknowns here.
Yes.
So if Devontae Smith-Pelly is honest and he says someone called, then there's a bigger issue here, because no one should be calling until the final things happened.
Devontae Smith-Pelly once forged his own signature, if you remember, on upper deck cards. So I don't know if his credibility is very good.
Well, I don't know either. I'm just
I'm just letting you know. Like he had he actually had to sign them after that because they used like an auto pen. But anyway.
But yeah, I mean, okay. Now, hold on a second. Let me just hang up on the person. Now, I'll say this. I mean, like I said, I predicted the Penguins in this series. I have not been convinced that the Caps can win this series unless things break completely the right way. And I look at it now. Their roster, particularly up front, is dramatically more thin this year. I mean, after the departures of Justin Williams, after Johansson, a few other departures, they're not as strong. And if you lose Wilson, then that just puts the onus more on guys like Kuznetsov and on Backstrom and on Ovechkin. And those guys really have not proved for the bulk of their career that they can really carry a team through when it counts. Now, I agree with Russ. I think this series goes 6 and Pittsburgh wins. And if that's the case, then, Washington has just proved my case again.
Peter, you know what it was? Wilson was carrying the emotional payload. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And when he was removed from that, nobody picked it up. And that was pretty evident pretty early on in that game that they had lost that aspect of their game. So now it's just Washington has to beat Pittsburgh team to team. Like there's no edge for them anymore. There's no more injured players. Everybody's back, except for Ashton Reese. She's not coming back. But most everybody's back, and they just have to beat them talent for talent, and that's why I don't believe they can do it.
Now, Jake Gensel with 2 goals again. Now he's got 10, and everybody made a big deal out of the fact that Crosby and Ovechkin, each of them had no shots on goal.
Yeah, but they were pushing each other. They're pretty active out there.
Yeah, Crosby.
Oh, yeah, it's just more the rarity of those two guys, right?
I'll take Crosby getting 2 assists in exchange for not having a shot on goal. I mean, they won the game, so who cares?
Right.
But I have to say that after I thought a rather pedestrian game 3, that Matt Murray was much better last night. He only faced, I think it was 24 shots.
He did ding his shoulder.
21 shots.
Oh, that was worrisome.
Say it again, Russ.
He did ding his shoulder a little bit, and that was a little worrisome. But he seemed to get past it with the trainer. So
yeah, I mean that we thought that was a concern, because of his lack of durability during the season. I mean there's the great equalizer there, Peter. If Murray gets hurt and Murray is not 100%, then it could swing back in Washington's favor. Another thing, a lot of people were saying last night that the way Phil Kessel was playing, and he's not making fairly big footprint so far, that they believe that Kessel is playing hurt, and that might be the case. But I still think if Malkin is anything close to 100% and Crosby keeps feeding Gensel, that
they had no answer for that.
They really don't.
They really don't. And here's the funny thing: like I was asked about Gensel this morning on Sirius, and they said, "Hey, what did you know about Jake Gensel going into the draft?" And look, he didn't play at a college that I saw a lot, and I didn't see him in the USHL. And I said I had seen very little of him. I knew of him. I think I saw him once. And nobody with their right mind would tell you they thought Jake Gensel could be this. Even the Penguins who drafted him in the 3rd round, because if they thought he would be this, he would have been drafted a lot higher, right? So it's amazing what we're seeing with him. And I even told them, and this is the truth, and you guys would probably say the same thing. We would have argued, Mike, if we would have said Jake Gensel is going to be the top goal scorer in the playoffs this year, we would have argued against it, even though based off of what he did last year, and I would have said somebody else, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the other game. And
there was another game.
Yeah, Peter, I was sort of dumbstruck by listening to the game, especially in the 3rd period, and hearing the silence that I heard over the radio as Pete Weber was doing the play-by-play, because it was 2-0 in the 3rd, and it did not sound like Winnipeg was getting many offensive chances. And the first roar that I really heard at the MTS Center was when Line scored that goal to make it 2-1 with around a minute left to go. I mean, from what I saw, and we were talking about this yesterday, Nashville played that disciplined game that I thought they were capable of, but I didn't think they would be able to completely shut down that big Winnipeg offense, and they did for most of that game.
Oh, they totally did. They played a masterful game. They got a bit of a lucky one in the first at the end to go up 1-0. And it was kind of a weird play. But hey, great 4th line shift from the Preds. And then, Subban on the power play in the second. So they go into the 3rd 2-0, and they keep doing the same thing. And they keep doing the same thing. And then they kept doing the same thing. Right. At about 8 minutes, Paul Maurice finally shifted his lines. He finally made some adjustments.
The stubborn lifted.
Yeah. And it was way too little too late. The Preds they lined up 1-3-1, and what was happening was the Winnipeg forwards would get up to the blue line, the defense would dawdle around, trying to figure out how to get past one forechecker. They'd get up to the center line or just past or close to it, and you know what they do? They'd fire it in. The forwards have been standing there for 6 seconds. They weren't moving, and they had no ability to go back and get the puck. And it was and the Nashville just chip it out. It was rinse, wash, repeat. It was so boring, yet it was masterful in its beauty because the Preds executed it with perfection. I mean, whatever Laviolette got into their heads to make sure that they shut it down, they didn't just shut it down. They buried it 6 feet under the ground and planted daisies. I mean, don't let the Laine goal fool anyone into thinking this is a close game.
Yeah, no,
it wasn't. It was over. And had the Jets pulled a rabbit out of their hat and miraculously tied it up with the goalie pulled,
right,
it would almost been a cruel joke to Nashville, because I don't think they deserve that at all. I mean, you can go on and on, but as I'm about to post on my blog, Paul Maurice got outcoached.
Oh, he did.
He got outcoached in a lot of ways, and his top playing defenseman was Dustin Byfuglien. Then it was Tyler Myers. Then it was Enstrom. Then it was Sherratt. No, then it was Trouba, then Sherratt, then Morrissey. So ideally, your best 2 puck moving defensemen in Trouba and Sherratt had the 4th and 6th least minutes. It was inconceivable. And then your line combinations. Then also taking out Jack Roslovic, who can match speed with anyone.
Well, we talked about him the day before, how good he was.
Yeah.
Even if he's not scoring, he's such a smart physical player. Yeah. Why would you take him out?
And putting in Joel Armia. And then the real controversy right now is Matthew Perreault said he was good to go.
Right.
He had not technically been medically cleared. So you left Matt Hendricks in instead of putting in Perreault. There are a lot of Jets fans who are really upset, and there's a little bit of conspiracy theory thinking going on here. I mean, it's never good when a player says, I'm ready to go, but the doctors haven't cleared him.
Right.
Perreault will be in for game 5 game 5.
That was a talent drop off between those two. That's a talent drop.
Oh, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. And, Perreault's a difference maker. And, he can do things, and he also does a lot of things post whistle. He's always in scrums. He's always getting in for such a diminutive sort of guy. He plays a really sort of hard-nosed game for a smaller guy. They need that right now. And, one of the things that a lot of Jets fans and media were interested in was Fiala out, Hartnell in. Hartnell didn't hurt his team.
No, he played good minutes, actually.
Yeah.
No,
he played smart.
He showed some jam. He played the physical game that he normally plays.
That's what we said. There's those 2 Hartnells, and he played the good Hartnell. He did.
Yeah.
What Paul Maurice needs to do right now, and he needs to do it with Charlie Huddy, and they need to get to and Compton.
Play, Peter. He is.
What?
Charlie Huddy's too old to get in there. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, but they need to get it. They need to get together and say, how do we fix our zone entries? Like that, if they can't do that, if they can't look at that tape and work with the team and go and look at how people beat the trap, because if I'm Laviolette, I do the exact same strategy tomorrow night.
Oh, absolutely. But I think they're only going to do it with a lead. But here's the easy answer, because while you were saying it, Peter, I was thinking, what the hell happened to the Dustin Byfuglien that was there the couple of games before? You're a big, fast guy. Bring the puck in and break the zone yourself. Go deep and then let the guys spread out and then make that pass and have them scrambling. But they didn't do that. He didn't do that.
So one of the things I tweeted about you last night, which I didn't see, was if you have to beat that, you've got to do a little chip. So it puts it into the no man's zone, and you have to enter with speed. So you're either going to draw an interference penalty, or you're going to have the defenseman turning around and not being able to do it because you're closing the gap fast enough.
Right. And when
one was on the same page, they couldn't. They'd hammer it in or they turn it over. It was so obvious. You got to coach your team.
And Peter, if they did that, they would be able to punish the Nashville defenseman, because if you look at the time on ice, you had Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm, and Subban 24 to 25 minutes, and they played the bottom pairing only like 8 or 9. They were in single digits. So, I mean, if you play that game, you have to punish those guys for being on the ice so much. Then you wear them down, and then they make mistakes late in the game. And you know, I don't think the line A goal was a result of a mistake. I think it was just a result of a face off in the zone that he blew by Rene. But yeah, I mean, the one thing
on the power play with the goalie pulled, right? So you got to give Nashville some credit here. Like it was 6-on-4, but the line A goal also was a power play that probably normally doesn't get called,
right?
But there was a play before that where Subban had actually decked someone, taken off their helmet. It might have been Scheifele, I can't remember. And then he cross-checked him. And normally that was a pretty insignificant cross-check in front of the net. It's across the back, but they couldn't let 2 go. And it was sort of like the makeup call. I don't think you call it, particularly in the last 2 minutes of a game. You probably don't make that call 9 times out of 10, but because something had already gone and everyone saw it get missed, they had to do something.
Now, the one thing I would say is that Nashville will have a tougher time playing that type of game, because that's the prototypical road game. You get the lead and you ice things down and you keep the crowd silent, and they did that masterfully. But I don't know if they can do that at home. Their home fans will get frustrated if it's, 0-0, 1-0, and they'll just be sitting on their hands. And I think they'll probably, maybe you tune that out. Maybe good teams tune that out, but I also think they want to please their home fans. So they might try to open it up a little more, but I think that's playing right into Winnipeg's hands, though.
You hope that they try to come out big and run with the Jets, or so to speak, run the game in that capacity. But, again, Connor Hellebuck didn't have a bad game. He probably could have had the Subban goal, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's a power play goal with a shot from the high slot. Not an easy thing to stop given that situation, partial screen. The other one was a weird play. He didn't do anything that caused a goal to happen that he should have had, but the Jets didn't do anything to help him, and to help them, they've got to play their game, and Nashville's got to be really cautious about that, because that's where they've been burned. And if I'm Laviolette, I may play a little cautious again and try and frustrate them, knowing that when things are going kind of equal, my depth guys and my team's taking advantage of opportunities more than Winnipeg's is. So maybe I'm okay trying to do that without trying to get the emotion of the home ice and stuff going on. I mean, this is what Laviolette's got to wrestle with, which is a far better problem to have than what Paul Maurice has got to wrestle with right now.
Here's the other thing too. And look, I get that Dustin Byfuglien's a weapon on the power play, but when you've got someone like Josh Morrissey getting 12 seconds of power play time, I mean, Tyler Myers got more power play time. I mean, no offense to Tyler Myers, Josh Morrissey is a better power play guy than Tyler Myers. And maybe at some point, Maurice should give him more opportunity there, because you would get a little bit better result. You would.
Yeah. Myers had over 18 minutes of 5-on-5 time. Morrissey had just over 14. Trouba had 14:57. I don't know what to say to that.
Right.
And those are your 2 best puck moving defensemen, not named Dustin Byfuglien.
Right. And that's my point, is like everything's dumped on Byfuglien to the point where let Morrissey have a little of that.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Give the guy a chance.
Morrissey was an offensive defenseman all through his junior career. The guy can score.
He was a play juggernaut for a while.
Now, is Enstrom clearly showing that he's still hurt, or is he playing at less than 100%? Or
I think Enstrom's probably playing, that 90 to 95%. It's not all that. He had a great game on Tuesday. No one had a good game last night. But that, again, it had so much to do with what the Predators were doing. Their puck support was Vegas-like.
Yeah, they
were everywhere. And maybe the Jets were skating on emotional fumes from Tuesday night. Maybe this malaise that everyone keeps talking about is still there. Whatever it was, it still comes back to the coaches who did not adjust and read the temperature of the series and how Laviolette was adjusting.
Yeah.
Like,
now,
maybe it's easier to adjust when you're down 2-1 and you've got to win the fourth game.
Yeah.
But when you've got a team like Nashville up and you're up 2-1, you've got to win the fourth game too.
Right.
Yeah. Just to give you a number, Peter, I mean, when Morrissey was in the playoffs with Kelowna, he had 14 points in 13 games. Like, he was pretty dynamic.
He's a totally dynamic offensive player.
But he's not getting used that way. He's getting used like you're a young player who can move the puck. That's great. I don't trust you a lot. That's the way Paul Maurice is treating him.
Now, this is the kind of story I love. I just read this on the CBC website. Nashville Predator fan named Ben McGreevy. I don't know if you heard about this one, Peter.
I'm not sure yet.
This was game 2 on Sunday, I believe. There were a couple Winnipeg fans sitting behind him, and he was sitting apparently near the Winnipeg bench, and he was not being extremely insulting, but he was chirping Dustin Byfuglien over the glass on the ice, and the two fans behind him were laughing each time he would, say something, and he say, "Hey, Byfuglien, you're the biggest piece of dirt on the ice," and they thought that was hilarious. And then he turned to the two fans and was nice about it and says, "I acknowledge, Dustin's a great player, and that's why I do it." And they stop him and say, "No, we think it's awesome. It's hilarious. He's our son." It was Byfuglien's parents.
Oh.
No, but apparently it was all good natured. I mean, the guy wasn't being racial or insulting.
I gotta tell you, yeah, I know, but I gotta tell you, my mother hears that stuff about her son. She's not happy, man.
I'd heard about that. That was hilarious. Yeah, no, that was good.
That is good.
Okay, so the 2 games tonight. First one, Boston and Tampa, and as we talked about yesterday, Russ, I think obviously, just like everybody was, espousing and making, praising Winnipeg after game 3. I think everybody's doing the same thing with Tampa, which makes me hesitate a little bit to think that Boston could bounce back, because Boston is a good team. And they're going to put Donato in the lineup, which I think.
Don't say back in. They're going to put him in.
Well, he was in for 1 game against Toronto after Wingles got hurt. But, essentially the theme in the Toronto series from Boston was, we're going to dance with the girl we brung.
Right.
And they played Danton Heinen, and they played Wingles. He played the guys that got them to 100 and whatever it was, 112 points. Or 100, yeah. So, but I think it's going to have to be more than Ryan Donato that gets them over the hump here. I think they need production from more than just Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak.
Yeah, Backus, Krejci. There's a lot of guys that have to give him production, and this is the job of Bruce Cassidy. And this right now, I think this is like the game where you see where he is as a coach, because I was a little critical of him when his last time in the NHL, but he had a really good, stretch here with Boston. And now Boston's fed him a really talented lineup.
Right.
Now it's up to him to get that going. If he can't get it going, I may go back to feeling the same way that I used to feel about Cassidy. Because again, to wait all this time to put Donato in makes no sense.
Yeah.
You knew that they were going to need more offense than this in this series. Toronto was a whole different series. I didn't kill him for leaving him out in that one, but for leaving him out this long in this one, that's fine. Like you said, he got 1 game against Toronto. But at the end of the day, it can't all be on Tuukka Rask. And once again, it seems like half the fan base is putting it all on Tuukka Rask. Chara is still very good, but he is not what he used to be. And Tampa's got guys that can skate around him and McQuaid and a few others that they have there. Yes, Krug and Grzelcyk are fast, and so is McAvoy. But that's only half their defense. The other half's getting victimized. And unless they're getting a lot of offensive push, or they're cycling the puck, or they're holding on to the puck, they could lose big again tonight. I got news for you.
Now, Peter, the echo here for a second.
I didn't hear anything.
I heard an echo, but.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you just, there you go. The hint, the key here is just to mute yourself for like 2 seconds, and then it disappears. Yeah. Tampa Bay, and they have the opportunity here. One of the things that is beneficial to a team that's hoping to go on a long run is to be able to end the series relatively early. I mean, sweeps are nice, but even like deeper in the playoffs, if you could avoid those game 6s and game 7s where wear and tear really takes their toll, you're much better and much fresher, deeper in the playoffs. And this is an opportunity for Tampa if they want to. I mean, I think that this series is probably going 6 or 7. That's what I predicted. But if Tampa can win their second game in Boston and go up 3-1, I don't think it's coming back for Game 6. I think Boston might be done. So this is an opportunity for Tampa to do a quick out, and it's also a test of the Bruins to see if they can, some players to step up and do what they need to win.
Yeah, this is the exact same opportunity the Jets had last night.
Yep.
And I suspect the Bolts are going to be a lot better prepared for what's coming at them than the Jets are. And I think there's enough experience. I think there's a better understanding of the stakes right now behind the bench with Cooper. I think he's going to look at this situation in a much clearer sense, because as we know, you never want to give the Bruins a chance to get back in a series.
Right.
And you don't, like, it's just a bad idea, and you've got to do it. I think, the Bruins are going to play some desperate hockey.
Yes.
And they've got to be prepared for that. And I think they will be, and they should be ready to put their foot down on the throat right now and end this, because if it goes back to Tampa 3-1, you may get back for Game 6, but I don't think you do.
Yeah. And you also, with the level of desperation increasing, you also have to worry about a guy who sometimes has questionable impulse control, meaning Brad Marchand. And I retweeted just some video. I'm pretty sure it was from Game 3. He cross-checks Alex Killorn while he's down on his knees in the zone. This was not, this was just like sort of behind the play type of thing. And while the whistle had been blown and they were like maybe assembling for a face-off, he takes his stick and he tucks it underneath the visor of Killorn. In the realm of the NHL right now, in the wake of Kadri and most recently Wilson, Marchand better watch out, because he does one more thing, he's going to get suspended, and I think the Bruins are done if he does get
if he misses time, they're done. Here's the thing. I think he'll start this game off on the edge, but I also think not just the McDonough hit, but just because Tampa's offense is back to where it should be,
yeah,
I'm not as worried about Marchand anymore. He's not getting to him like he used to.
Well, I mean, they're a more experienced club, and this was the thing that I thought in the Toronto series cost the Leafs. There was no pushback. He will keep doing what he's doing until somebody pushes back. And I don't think we're overemphasizing the McDonough hit. Once McDonough did that, okay, he basically says, okay, I can't get away with the crap that I'm doing because I'm going to get some repercussions from it. And there are players on the Lightning who will body slam him like McDonough did, who will hit him along the boards like Hedman would.
Plus, a lot of the other ways the Bruins play, whether it's Marchand trying to slew foot you and everything, if you can't catch the guy or you don't have the puck, you can't do it. And that was half the problem last game, is that the Bruins were like a half step to a step behind on literally everything for most of that game. And they can't be that way this game, or they might get blown out.
Now, this is going to be the big test in the other game later tonight. This is going to be the biggest test for Vegas, probably since early in the regular season here. Now it's 2-2, and as we all said yesterday, it was a clear Sharks victory and probably the worst performance that the Golden Knights had in the postseason. And it's now whether they can bounce back from that on home ice, whether they can resort to their usual tactic of jumping all over their opposition early in the game, put the pressure on. If the Sharks can weather that and they get the lead, then the Cinderella story may be over with. But I'm still skeptical whether they keep bouncing back. So I think there's a chance that they win this game and go back to San Jose ahead 3-2 in the series.
There's definitely a chance. I think I don't think there's going to be a big feeling out period in this game. I think both teams are going to look to jump out early and sort of get their game rolling early, because knowing how each of the other two have been, and especially now since Vegas got shut out and then they had that whole Twitter war with the Kings, that was kind of funny. I don't know if anybody saw that, but
a bit of it, yeah.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. That's going to get old one day for the Vegas fans, because while you're riding high, you could be the snarkiest Twitter handle on on the block, and that's great. But once you get eliminated, you can't be as snarky, and at some point they'll be eliminated, I think, and that's when you got to watch it being the snarkiest Twitter handle on the block. But as far as what happens on the ice, I think San Jose has figured out that they're not getting great scoring, Vegas, from all their lines, and so like if you could cover that Carlson line really well when you're out there, you have neutralized half of their offense at least. And so that's the other thing is those other guys now, like James Neal, where's he been?
Yeah. I mean, in the games at home, I thought he was not a force, but he was viewable. He was there. You noticed him, but I really didn't notice him in the two games, or in the 2 games in San Jose. Not much at all. Now, Peter, you've seen these teams more than Russ and I have. I've never, all this year, I've never bought into San Jose. I know that, I think Martin Jones is a great goaltender. I like Vlasic and Burns, but I just never thought that. I mean, I thought they were going to be one of the teams in the Pacific that wasn't going to make the playoffs, and they ended up finishing in second place. So that's sort of what's behind me picking Vegas after I thought Vegas was going to get beaten by Los Angeles. Now, I guess I have to reconsider my thought process here, because they're even going into Game 5, but there's still that skepticism there about the Sharks and their ability, even to get past an expansion team.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's no normal expansion team.
I agree.
I think the thing about the Sharks is that they're always a team where we've waited for something to happen, and that's kind of burned in our memory, right? Like you just, nothing ever seems to go completely right with them. So you're always sort of waiting for what's going to go wrong. The first round playoff exits of years past, right? Like all these things where they were favored in, being up 3-0 on LA. Remember they came back and LA won 4 straight or something, I think it was, or was it 3-1? I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. 3-1.
Yeah. And things like that. So the Sharks have this sort of stigma attached to them, and I think that's why no one really trusts them, because they never seem to really do it. They get finally make the Stanley Cup final, and it just, nothing was going right for them.
I trust them I keep here than I did that year, Peter. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, I kind of like what I see from them. Like, aside from that 7-0 loss, they haven't really had a poor showing.
No, and Jones is great.
And you can do a lot of good things when your goalie's playing as well as Martin Jones is. I think I mean, the series is going 6. I think it's going to go 7, and I think San Jose is going to take the game tonight. I really do.
Here's the thing. It won't shock me if they put in Joe Thornton tonight, because you got to figure, even though everybody's probably thinking, well, you wait till you're down to put in Joe Thornton. No, I want to hit Vegas in Vegas. I want to shock the hell out of their matchups, because I already know Gallant's not a big matchup guy. I want to start the game with Joe Thornton out there. Even if I'm only playing him 5 minutes for the game, I want to create that mismatch right out of the gate.
I have a weird feeling, Russ, that it's going to be like Stamkos a few years ago. They're going to put him in. They're going to put him in Game 7.
Probably.
They'll wait.
I would use him in this game only because it's so pivotal. And this way, I think it would mess with the Knights' head, because I think right now the Knights aren't feeling good after that shutout. There's no way. And Fleury was moving around, like I said, more than he did in that game than the entire playoffs. So that's something where maybe even Fleury is not super confident like he was a couple of games ago. You put Thornton in there for that first draw, even if he comes right off the ice, you have now sort of changed the way the Knights have to think about this game.
Well, Twitter was all a buzz when Thornton took the skate for it was Game 1. So I mean, the only thing is, and I would seriously doubt that he's going to come back as a regular shift guy. That I think he'll come back as a specialist. He'll come back on the power play.
You start him on the first shift just because.
Right. Willis Reed. But basically, what I'm saying is he comes in. Well, Stamkos played, I think, 10 or 11 minutes in that Game 7 game.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and he was a decoy.
And he was definitely a decoy, but you can put a guy in a power play, and Thornton could be in front of the net or on the side or on one of the sides, and
just on the right hash or something. He could still pass the puck.
Yeah, so
well enough that he could pass the puck. So I can't say who I think is going to win this one because I don't have a great feeling either way.
Right.
But I feel like the Sharks have been figuring them out a little bit, and I like what DeBoer is doing. I'll go that far.
I could see a 2-1 victory for Vegas with Marc-Andre Fleury making about 50 saves. It's gonna be it's got the feel of one of those games. So I mean, we'll see, and we'll talk about it on Monday. Now, Russ, we haven't really touched on other than the results of the draft lottery.
Yeah.
About the upcoming draft, and obviously I'm gonna start getting more into it and doing my study up for Dallas over the next couple months. But we've seen some of these players at the top end of the draft in the World Junior or in other events, and I know you have, and I was at the World Junior in Buffalo. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion that Dahlin is going to be the number 1 pick by the Sabres. They're already talking about him. Yeah, I mean, basically, they're already like.
You also print his jersey up, like you just
right, and they're using him to sell season tickets, and believe me, the Sabres need to do something besides offering people Sabre points for their Sabre store for refunded tickets.
Let him show up at Bill's minicamp, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, whatever. But I think honestly, it's more a question of what, other than picking Dahlin, is the organization going to do over the summer to change the direction of a completely losing franchise. But let's go past that. Carolina at number 2, Montreal at number 3, Ottawa at number 4. I think it was Detroit at number 5, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so we've established the top end of this draft is mostly wingers. Now, I know you haven't put out a mock draft yet, but you have rankings.
I won't do a mock. I just do rankings. And the second round of them are on sportshealth.com, so they are up.
Right, but I mean, you have Dahlin 1. Do you have Brady Tkachuk at 2?
I do have Brady Tkachuk 2. I have Philip Zadina 3, and I have Andrei Svechnikov at 4. But I do feel like any of them are interchangeable. I know that you could find something and say, hey, Svechnikov is probably the biggest threat, best scoring type because of the big threat with the speed. But again, I also think Zadina would have a quick transition to the NHL the way he sure did, because like when you watched him in international play, he had to do everything himself. He's used to that, and he's used to creating his own space. And so I think he automatically is seamless and walks right in and can do the job. And then,
And very, very similar to the guy that I've compared him to, very similar to Pasternak, who was a pick in the 20s in 2014, and he played right away.
Yeah, except this guy won't go in the 20s. That's the only difference.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, and Tkachuk, it's just one of those things with Tkachuk that I've had him second forever, and I know that depending on the team that was there were other teams that would take him second. Buffalo pretty much said they would.
Yeah.
The reason is not just because of the name either. It's because he does have this calmness on the ice, not calm like he's not tough, like calm like he knows what he's doing. He doesn't panic. He's a big guy with a lot of finesse who skates well, who could literally go into the offensive zone and blow everything up, get things set up for his teammates. He could either make that pass or he could score. He could play down low. There's a lot of things he could do. He could play center or wing.
Yeah.
He'll probably be a winger in the NHL because that's what he's listed at, and I'm sure he will. But I'm just saying it just shows that he has a lot of talent across the board that I wouldn't ignore just because like Svechnikov is super flashy or looks like the ultimate sniper. I think a lot of those spots are interchangeable. Yeah,
and I have a feeling for a number of reasons that he's a fit for Carolina, because remember, other than Jordan Stahl, Carolina's forwards they don't really have a lot of big impact guys. It's Teravainens, it's Ahos, it's Skinners. There's not a lot. There's not a ton of size there.
They may opt for one of the two big guys in either Tkachuk or Svechnikov, and I'm sure most people would lean towards Svechnikov, and I get it. I mean, I wouldn't say that's wrong.
And this could be totally off base, but first of all, I think the fact that Matthew Tkachuk, his older brother, was a success right away, and being the type of player that he is, and I think Brady he could be better. I mean, physically, I think he's bigger. That helps out, but I also think that Don Waddell, who is tied in with USA Hockey, and him being a U.S. product and being involved with the USA Hockey is going to help the chances of him being a Carolina pick and maybe decrease the chances of a Zadina or a Svechnikov going number 2.
I can't say there's no chance of that. I mean, Dudley will certainly have something to say about it.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I can't say that's not impossible. And then, you're talking about Quinn Hughes, and I forget who said it in the chat room, like, hey, that'd be great for Detroit. It would be great for Detroit. If I was Detroit, I would take Quinn Hughes. I mean, that's fine. I mean, Noah Dobson, Quinn Hughes, any of those guys, I have Dobson rated ahead of him. And that's only because I believe he's got a bigger ceiling, because he's a guy that can put on strength, and he's right now kind of a skinny guy, and he's a very safe, really good player, where Quinn is flashier, maybe even smarter, but he's not as big. And so you have to decide which one of those types you want.
I very rarely pay attention to any trade proposals floated on Twitter to other reporters, or even, I mean, if I'm doing a Q&A on Hockey Buzz, I'll address it. But if there's one team I think that has the opportunity, that has the greatest opportunity to trade a pick in the top 5, it's not going to be Buffalo. They're not going to trade Dahlin.
No, they're not trading.
I don't think it's Carolina.
I
think it's the Montreal Canadiens, because there is a win now mentality there, that if they could get themselves the number 1 center that they're or a guy who they think is more apt to be a number 1 center like Drouin wasn't, that they would trade that pick. I just
I get what you're saying, but this isn't a strong center draft.
No.
And the thing is, I don't know if there's a top line center in the draft.
Right. No, I'm saying they would trade the pick to get a top line center.
I don't know if you can get one for that based on the fact that there isn't one in the draft.
Right.
But usually you're trading it for futures where, I'll give you a top line center because I can draft a top line center.
Yeah, I mean the proposal that was floated, and like I said, this was just a fan proposal to a writer, was a deal between Florida and the Canadiens involving Pacioretty and the number 1 pick for Barkov. And I don't think Florida is trading Barkov, but I'm just saying a deal like that, I could see Bergevin snooping around looking for a deal like that to possibly happen.
Look, here's the reality of this draft. You were going to hear about 5 or 6 teams at least that are all going to say, or not going to say, but you're going to hear the rumors that, hey, we're trying to trade up. And there's a good reason that they're trying to trade up. It's because, after you get past 20, 21, 22, the talent level does thin out a bit. It's not to say this is a bad draft, because there's going to be guys found in all parts of this draft like every other draft. But it's just to say that if you are looking for something particular that you feel need a need filled, you're going to be looking in these top 20 spots. Once you start going past that, you could still get a really good player, but you maybe not getting – I don't even know if you're getting a franchise player past 10, right? So that's why I think you're looking at teams that are going to want to trade up to those other teams in the top 10 to get somebody specific if they're targeting them. I'll give you an example. There's a question in the chat room who I think the best 3 American players are. I think it's Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, and Joel Farabee. And Farabee's the guy that sort of gets the shade from the other 2. But if you watch him, if he were 6'2" or 6'3", he would probably go 2nd or 3rd in his draft. The offensive skill that he has with his skating ability and the hockey sense is terrific. But what is he, 5'11"? So that's, or no, 6 foot. I think he's 6 foot. That cuts it down a little bit to where, all right, you know what? It's a decent size, but it's not a big, there are still, believe it or not, there are still teams that worry about that. I don't. But if I was a team that was picking 7th and I didn't need a defenseman, I'd probably be looking at Joel Farabee.
Yeah. And we'll be talking more about the draft as we get closer. I mean, I just wanted to start touching on it a little bit. Now, some news and notes here. We talked about Brian Burke and his Sportsnet debut. He did a spot on an excellent podcast, the 31 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick. And I had to pull this out because it had to do with what I thought was Burke's most ridiculous claim as Leafs general manager. If you remember back in 2009, they refused to tank, and they finished 7th. They had the 7th overall pick, and he came out after the season and said that they were going to trade. They were going to try to trade for John Tavares, and that if he had the number 1 pick, they would trade for Tavares. Apparently, he approached Garth Snow, and Garth Snow was not happy with the fact that, Burke had made the public assertion that he was going to trade from the number 1 pick. And apparently Snow said, well, you've boxed me in because you said that Tavares is going to be the number 1 pick. Don't call me again. So Garth Snow, this is, I mean, for those who are critics of Garth Snow, I get it. It's like, okay, just because one general manager says I'm going to take so-and-so doesn't mean that you have to. But to basically shut down any potential of a trade,
that's short-sighted. Like you got to keep the field open. Like even if I'm competing with you and Peter, and even if I think Peter is like a little snarky with me or whatever, I still got to deal with him, because at the end of the day, he might have a player I need, and one day I may have to just knock on his door, and I don't want somebody to say no deal because we don't get along. That's bad, and that's bad for your organization.
Yeah. Now I tie this in with a note I saw here. Sorokin, the Islander prospect, the KHL goaltender, Igor Arenko, who's a good Russian reporter who you can trust the information that he provides.
Yeah.
There were indications that Sorokin would be coming over to the NHL, and according to Igor, Sorokin will not sign with the Islanders unless Garth Snow is no longer there,
which is very unlikely to happen. So I guess Sorokin's not coming over. But here's the thing: Sorokin was signed to a deal, and I guess they were trying to get him out of it. Is that what my assumption is?
I mean, I thought I heard he signed an extension.
Right. And that's why I guess they were probably trying to get him to break that.
I mean, maybe it's got an NHL out. I mean,
right. It probably does, because I remember he signed that. That's what I thought. Look, that's a big loss for the Islanders. I mean, again, now, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, they're losing a lot here. They are. They need to bring in Lou tomorrow if they have any chance of getting him. Yeah. Because otherwise, they're literally going to be starting off, like, I don't want to say from scratch, but if you lose JT and all you get is a draft pick for him, and you can't bring Sorokin over because he doesn't like the situation,
right?
Next year is not looking so great.
All right, a couple quick other things here, and we'll end the show. Ilya Samsonov, the former first-round pick of the Capitals, signs his ELC with the Caps.
It's a big move. Braden Hope he's watching it.
And Grubauer. I mean, one of these goaltenders is going to get moved in the summer. It's a question of which one. And
well, maybe not in the summer. Like they may start the season off with Grubauer and Holtby and tell Samsonov, hey, you've got to play X amount of games. You remember the Capitals did do that with the Avalanche, Varlamov. They did the same thing, because I covered a couple of Varlamov's AHL starts, and then they brought him up. And so they may do the same thing with Samsonov. I suspect they will. And so I don't know if he'll get traded over the summer. They may let that bleed into the regular season and then sort of make a decision and then call Samsonov up.
Well, Peter, the reason I think that there may be a situation where they trade a goaltender this summer is the fact that there are so many teams out there this summer that I think are going to be looking for goaltenders, that I think the best payoff for the Caps is, either moving Grubauer or Holtby now, where teams, I mean, okay, is Calgary in a situation where they, I know that they have the young goaltenders in Parsons and in Rittich and I'm sorry, who was the third goaltender? Gillies. But Mike Smith got hurt, and that tanked their season. There are other teams out there that are dying for goaltenders. So I think that the Caps could strike pay dirt if they move in the summer, if they think Samsonov is ready to be at least a backup in the NHL next year.
That's fair.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is who's going to be a suitor, who's going to want to pay, and who's going to want to gamble. Because again, as good as Grubauer's been, you're now putting him in a situation where he's got to be the number one guy. And goalies are voodoo. And you can look at how well the Mike Smith gambles worked out for Calgary. There's all sorts of things that just are funny with goalies. And the fact of the matter is, goalies just don't get a big return on the trade market anymore. And there's good reason for that.
Yeah. Sure.
And, so while Washington in particular may have a position of strength because of who they have, it doesn't mean they're going to get back much, but there could be some suitors simply because there are teams that need goalies, right?
Again,
the market's an odd market.
Yeah, it all depends on where the team is and how desperate they are. Because like a team like Philadelphia, like I said a couple days ago, a Corey Crawford with 2 years left in his contract would be a perfect fit for them. A team like St. Louis, where the goaltender has been the problem for years and years on end, I think they would pay through the nose to get Holtby because maybe they think Holtby would be the answer. So, I mean, there are other teams out there that need backups that, I think Carolina, does anybody doubt that Thomas Dundon is probably willing to move on from Scott Darling after 1 year based on what he's, done so far? I mean, didn't we talk a little bit about the trade that they made yesterday? I think there's going to be like 3 or 4 teams out there that are going to be looking for a potential number one, and Grubauer's in that Darling mode. He's a guy who has improved. He's going to be a number one, but
I think he proved that he could be a number one more than Darling, actually.
Right, and Chicago got a 3rd round pick for Darling. That was it. So, I mean, we'll see. The only other note, the last note here, and this is, this could have an impact on Columbus early next year. Zach Werenski had a shoulder surgery this week. The timeline for his recovery is 5 to 6 months. That means no training camp. That means extending into the regular season, Russ. I mean, they have a decent defense, and maybe they can survive without Werenski for a month, but he's a big part of that team.
Oh, he's massive. I mean, it will affect their power play. It will affect a lot of things. But Tortorella is good at dealing with situations like that. So I don't think that's going to be the biggest deal.
Yeah.
Only because it's a short term. I did want to answer one more question. They were asking in the chat room who the best 3 defensemen in this draft, and it's Noah Dobson, Quinn Hughes, and Evan Bouchard.
So not Boquist.
No, because he's not all around great. His defense actually is borderline.
Okay. All right. Great show, guys. We will be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. Eklund will be back. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.